Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 46 of the Titanforge podcast. Is it 46, Tettles?
It is, in fact, 46.
All right, nice. My name is Dratnos, joined by my accounting assistant, Tettles.
Hello, Count Dratnos.
And, of course, we are rejoined after a couple weeks of absence by Trell. Welcome back, Trell.
Hey, guys.
Glad to have you back. It's been a few weeks, though, so you were a little busy with MDI stuff. But now you're not busy with MDI stuff for a while now.
That's correct.
So that's good news for us in that you'll be on the show, hopefully, a lot going forward. Not busy practicing stuff. So that should be nice. We've gotten some good suggestions for new names for the show if we do decide to get rid of the Titanforge name. So shout out to everybody who sent in some good ones there. Some more favorites. Let's see, my favorite one that we've gotten so far is Feat of Strength. There are a couple other good ones on this list, though. Do you guys have any favorites that got sent in?
I like the weekly no lever. That one's really funny, but I don't... Okay, so basically our rationale for changing it was that we didn't feel like Titanforge would embody what is current WoW. Weekly no lever. Also, kind of not direct. I don't know if it's direct enough, right? I think that's...
Yeah, if we were changing, it would be for, like... search engine reasons, right? It's because we'd want people searching for WoW podcasts to find it, right? And Weekly No Lever maybe also doesn't accomplish that, but it's a really good name. It's really funny.
Titanforge, a WoW podcast.
Yeah, there's
Weekly No Lever is really funny.
It's really funny. It might be just funny enough to be worth it. I don't know.
It may be funny enough to where we just take it.
So yeah, that's there's definitely some good options there. If we do make that change, it'll be somewhere down the line, though. For now, we're sticking with Titanforge. It's just, Titanforging has been confirmed to be going away, so that's sad news for our title, our podcast title. I don't know. What did you guys think of Corruption versus Titanforging? Now that we kind of know that both are never coming back, Tettles, do you have any preference between either of those systems?
I think Corruption is more fun to play with if you have good Corruption. I think Corruption is more frustrating. I do also view Corruption as something that I dislike greatly because it gives people a way to complain about their gear more and blame their low damage on Corruption. And I am never a fan of that. I always prefer to be of the mindset that you can always look at yourself and introspectively improve by just improving your gameplay as opposed to just complaining about gear. So I don't know. I think Corruption is cool though. I think it's been fun to play my class being mega overpowered and have 10,000 haste.
Trell, how about you?
It's funny you say that. I fundamentally disagree. I hate complaining about taking more damage, but I think Corruption is too powerful, and the fact that I can't get certain corruptions on my Brewmaster still is really frustrating, and I just take more damage than some other players.
Yeah, like the vitality stuff and the versatile.
Yeah. Well, I'm a DPS, so it's a little bit different, I would say.
Yeah, I think that Corruption has done some... There were some good parts to the system, but I'm kind of excited to go back to just gear, not having anything, just being gear.
You never have to look at an auction house and think, oh shit, this item is corrupted.
Yeah, the auction house things with this tier were... I think that probably the most offensive thing about Corruption was the fact that you could spend 10 million gold and be 50% more powerful than somebody who didn't in the first couple weeks.
Well... Yeah, it's because the gear drops from the BOEs are super RNG too about what corruption it actually rolls. If it's profession based, then it's way more accessible. It's easier to get and it's cheaper. I think that's why I think that's why professions are different.
I do agree with you that corruption was a very common excuse for people who there's a mindset of always improving yourself, and you could stop yourself from having to, admit that you were doing something wrong and just be like, oh, look, that guy's got more corruption than me. And it kind of absolves you of actually having to, take responsibility for doing your stuff right.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that I do it on my Demon Hunter. It's not that I blame corruption. It's that I know that I'm doing low single target damage. So I could potentially fall in the mindset of oh shit, it's just due to corruption. I'm pretty sure I'm just not pressing Annihilation enough though.
Yeah, there's it's almost so rarely are people actually executing their rotations properly over a 3-minute fight or whatever. Almost every time I've looked at some log of somebody who sent me in why am I doing less damage than this person with all these corruptions? Is it just the corruptions? It's not just the corruptions almost ever. Sometimes the corruptions mean that, like,
I'm sure on average,
often the people with the corruptions are also making mistakes, and the corruptions, are what makes the difference. But like, you can still basically always be doing better yourself, which is a good thing. I agree though that on the tanking front in particular, like outside of Protection Warriors and even inside Protection Warriors, it's really stark how tanky you can get with the right corruptions and how much you just get murdered without them.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's a drawback. And then the healing department as well. There's some degeneracy going on with Mistweavers. So Mistweavers were going to get a nerf this week, but they actually held off on delivering it because of player outroar.
Should have nerfed that shit into the ground. There's
I knew it was super powerful, and then I looked at a screenshot someone sent me of like the number 1 Mistweaver logs, and it was like 300k HPS, 400k, 580k HPS on Hivemind or something. Like, I didn't even know you could take 600k HPS worth of damage on that fight.
Yeah, so this is, let's see, this is top logs from Ny'alotha. This is the maximum parse for each class. So this is people that have their very best corruptions for Mistweaver. It is cranking these other specs here by just a huge margin. But on the other hand, if you cut down to just like 95th percentile, things start to look pretty reasonable. 90th percentile, Mistweaver is not even at the top anymore. So,
are there only like 10?
Yeah, there's
Mistweavers shit in the world.
There's not very many that have this gear. It's pretty rare. And I think that there's some reasonable complaining from like other Mistweavers that are like, look, the spec is in a pretty fun place right now. It's pretty good. And the nerf that destroys the top parses also destroys everybody else who aren't doing anything wrong. Like, who don't need to be nerfed. So I think it makes sense to...
That should have been nerfed. Like, okay, so basically the major argument is it's the end of the expansion, just let it happen. I fucking hate that argument.
That's not the argument at all. The argument is that, yes, we should fix this, right? The top parse being this high, but we shouldn't fix the fact that, like, Mistweavers have a fun fist weaving spec right now that is not broken everywhere except for if you have, 5 expedient corruptions, when it starts to be able to do this.
Okay.
So I think that there's, it's reasonable for them to like find a different nerf than what you've got. You could target cap the like how Glimmer's been capped to 8 targets. You could do that for like number of mists that you have out, and that accomplishes this without making the build like stop working in Mythic Plus and Raids.
Or it could just give diminishing returns or some shit. Yeah.
Yeah. There are other ways for them to nerf this, but definitely. The people, I agree with you that they should find a way to stop what Mistweavers are doing at the top end. Absolutely. All right. So that's not going to be our main topic though this week. We're going to talk a little bit about Torghast. We're going to talk a little bit about the MDI. We're going to talk a little bit about the whole set of Ny'alotha nerfs that came out right in the past couple days and on reset. But before we get to those, we get to thank our supporters over at patreon.com for supporting our show every week. They are Paul of US Proudmoore, King of Skills, VTech XD, Zuko, Ja, Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Dawn EU, I Wish I Was Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Thanks Tettles, Heltari, Ishiyu, Blue of Emerald Dream, Chromed, Seraphicus, Trekkie, The Marsh Hare, Regulus, Never Nude, Grizzjam, Chewy, Do You Want to Build a Snow Trell, Peleon, who ran out of jokes for this segment, Coke Dog's Gopher, Worgen Death More Like Worgen Dead, Rude Dinosaur, Rytan of the Guild on Tar and Mill, who I think are still recruiting Mage and Warlock, although I guess they haven't sent us an update since last week, so maybe they found their Mages and Warlocks, but imagine they're probably still looking for good ones, so Tar and Mill EU. Yeah, thanks so much for the support.
I think that's my favorite segment of the show now. The names just get more interesting every week.
Yeah, if you're one of those people and you want to get your name changed, either through Discord is an eeasy way, or if you're not a Discord user, through the Patreon direct message system. We read those as well, although sometimes it takes a couple days. Like I check them before the podcast every week, okay. So it'll be up to date, but you won't get like an immediate reply usually. All right, so let's talk about the MDI. So we just had the first North Americas and Oceanic Cup this past weekend. Congratulations to Method NA, who got a first place victory. and Ethical, who took a map off of them in the grand finals in a Taldazar, and earned a 2nd place, which that was the first time a map was taken off of a Method team so far in this MDI, so shout out to Ethical for doing that.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of surprised with how competitive NA and OC were. I had a high suspicion that it was going to be just kind of a blowout, but the top 4 looked really good. Honestly, looked like they had potential. The rest of the teams, I think there was a lot to. I think that it'll just end up taking time for the rest of the teams to be able to be a little bit more well-rounded. I think Big Dumb Gaming could have been pretty good. I think there are a lot of teams that could have just. I think with more time and more weeks, they'll probably be able to be pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing the competition continue to be rising in those lower seeds. But I agree with you that the top 4 seeds of the North American Cup were more competitive than the top 4 seeds of the European Cup, I'd say. Like, the odds that the 4th seed was going to have an interesting game against the 1st seed, I think, were much higher in America than they were in Europe, which is cool to watch. Over in Europe, though, Method EU looks so good.
I think the biggest deal was like out of the top 4 teams, Goosey Bad and Complexity Limit didn't look like mega consistent. Ethical seemed like they were like pretty consistent for the most part, but like Goosey Bad and Complexity Limit, they looked like they had 6 strategies that could match time-wise versus Method NA and even Ethical, but like just their consistency seemed a little bit lacking overall.
Yeah, Complexity Limit, though, they are like so new to this, where it seems like they still haven't hit diminishing returns on their practice time in the same way that other teams might have. So I'd expect them to see them like jump up in performance next week as well.
Charles, do you have anything that you thought about it or anything to add?
No, I think it was a pretty good showing from NA. They had like 4 to 5 good teams, like you said, and they were more balanced than I would have. I think several of them are still ramping. Max has said they're ramping in like 8 tweets in a row or something.
Yeah. Unfortunately, on their second day there last weekend, they had the down ramp instead of the up ramp, but that's okay. I'm sure they'll find the up ramp for next time.
I also enjoyed watching 3 teams bug out the eels and Shrine and reset the boss or drop threat and get their team killed by bullshit that shouldn't be in the game.
Do you have any tips to how to avoid that beyond just taking it a little bit slower than the teams have been? Or
the tank has to sit in the water. You have to watch every single eel. You have to let yourself accumulate stacks that you obviously don't want, but you kind of have to get. And then once they're all on you, you can leave. You gotta really watch the pathing of like every single eel to make sure they don't go through the ground and get stuck.
There's a few of those eels that are like the problem eels, and they have these like little patrols before you pull them. And you can kind of tell if they're going to be in that terrain and when you pull them. And then you have to just make sure that you're not pulling them through the terrain. You're pulling them out of the terrain.
Yeah. Did you guys see that clip of the perplexed one where Swag is like sitting in front of the eel and the eel just gets dragged into like the depths of the underworld?
That one,
yeah.
That one in particular did not look like that was one where the team was actually like playing around the eels properly, and it just still yeeted through the floor. That one is the one I have hyper aware of it. Yeah,
that's why I have a problem with it, because even though it's a bug and you can kind of play around it, sometimes it just like it'll bug anyway. Even if you're a really good player, Divine Field and the Shines team are all super experienced players, and they still had it happen to them.
Here, right. I just grabbed it right now. I'm gonna link it in chat. You can pull it up, Dratnos.
Okay. Yeah, this is the
it's bananas. It's so bad.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can go full screen on this. Whoop. Yeah, you can see just that eel just dropping through the floor there.
Literally, whenever I said banished into the underworld, it just... it's like, okay, bro.
You know, the funny thing is, I just don't think they've been aware of this. And I don't know if they'll still not fix it now, but there's a different boss room entirely for the Crucible of Storm. Like, the outside edges of that room are flat. And all they'd have to do is just substitute that terrain for the bugged, craggy terrain that's there now, and it probably would fix all the issues.
Well, okay. I think that like actually substituting terrain would be of a problem. I think if they made like an invisible wall there, I think it might
just make the eels snap instead of evade. Bang.
Sure.
You know, I think I accept that. Never mind, you're right. Snap instead of evade.
There's a couple of ways they could fix it. I just don't think they're aware of it.
All right, another thing that we have seen showing up in this MDI has been a massive amount of hunters. We haven't seen all of it yet, though, on the broadcast. Allow me to show you the King's Rest time trials for the cup that's coming up this weekend.
The Titanforge podcast also seeing an immense amount of hunters.
Yes,
as King's now Rest, all three of us have one.
Yeah, we're all playing hunter.
Of the top 8 teams, that's 24 DPS players for the King's Rest time trial. 22 of them were hunters. There was one rogue and one demon hunter in these top 8 runs.
But why isn't there a mage?
Demon hunter.
Yeah, it's completely wild. This is so. You won't see this always in King's Rest, but tyrannical bolstering King's Rest, that's a perfect hunter environment in this dungeon.
Well, KR is also like one of the best dungeons for hunter by a significant amount, right, Trail?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And Workshop.
Yeah, Workshop, King's Rest, single targety dungeons, good for hunter, but tyrannical bolstering in particular makes it really good for hunter. We don't see it's not like this for the other dungeons though. DKs in Underrot and in Shrine, DKs, hunters, DHs. So there's some mix in the other dungeons, but in King's Rest it is hunters all the way down. So yeah, that's gonna be an interesting thing. It's kind of like dungeons can either be like really DK heavy, really hunter heavy, or they can be kind of a mix.
Oh yeah, the really DK heavy ones involve a demon hunter as well.
Often a demon hunter, yeah.
How do you feel about like the no rogue keys? I think we've seen a lot of no rogue this MDI. I'm actually kind of a fan.
Yeah, rogue is it's pretty low damage.
Yeah, honestly.
Arrow literally DM'd me after they lost the upper final to Method NA. He's like, dude, rogue sucks. He's like, rogue is just so fucking bad right now. He's like, it's the worst version of hunter. It just sucks.
Yeah, it's like you don't need Shroud. Like Shroud is not saving you any serious amount of time in any dungeons. And their damage just has not scaled very well, and the nerfs have really come and started to hurt. So yeah, I agree.
I'm okay. I'm okay with the spot that rogue is in personally. I think it's like fine.
Yeah, I mean rogue's still showing up. Like I think there's a rogue in. I guess there's only 2 rogues in the total top 8 of time trial teams or times, but still, like that's more than we're seeing of many classes that don't make it into MDI at all.
Big truth right there.
True.
And we've seen so much of them in previous MDIs. I'm fine with rogue. Like I don't think rogue is something they need to look at right now to buff anything.
The MDI consensus is that rogue is definitely not the best damage, and if you can get away without it, that's definitely the play. I think it's just based on my limited experience this season and many others' experience going on. I think playing without a rogue just causes a lot of challenges that people aren't used to having, like just more threat challenges in general, how to gather packs that are very spread apart with tricks and snap points. Without a rogue can be pretty hard. Like Hunter has misdirect, but it's not even close to what
if you have triple Hunter, though, you don't have anybody who's going to be getting threat, so threat problems go away again as well. All right, one thing we also saw was more teams kiting obelisks in more dungeons than Freehold. So
dude, yeah.
In Ataldazar, we saw Ethical kiting the awakened enemies against Yasma. This was in their upper finals where they ended up losing to Method NA, but they won this map against Method NA in the grand finals, kiting the obelisks this way.
I think that is the... Oh, that's not the grand final. That's the upper final. Yeah. I couldn't remember which one I linked. Inertia was doing that too, right, Charles?
Yeah, we were.
Ataldazar time trial?
We had a nice little 12-12 Atal at one point. But it's pretty funny doing that with the last boss. It actually lowers the boss kill time by like 30 to 45 seconds, having the healer kite those around.
Yeah, I mean, so the downside is that the healer is not able to DPS, right? But the upside is the fact that you don't have to put any damage onto the obelisks, and you can just blow it up with I was kind of surprised that Method NA didn't kite obelisks personally, especially with their 11. It was 11:45 in time trials. I was like,
yeah, you were 95% sure that they had been kiting obelisks in that run because of how fast their time was.
11:45 is so insane to not be putting any damage into those obelisks. I thought it was just like not really reasonable.
Yeah,
I think it may have been like they probably wanted to, but it's the feeling of what if they ban the strat for next weekend? We should probably just keep practicing the guaranteed strat that's going to work, and especially if it's going to be on a 20. Like you need to practice those even more. That was probably their mindset last week, at least. Now it's a little bit different with no 20s.
Yeah, so speaking of that, 20. So the grand finals of the first 2 cups were played on plus 20s, but going forward, back down to plus 19s. So this is going to be the player's pretty happy about this. Of course, it's going to keep the competition on the same keys. So you only have I guess 11 total maps to practice, and you don't have to kind of worry about practicing a new set of slightly different maps for the grand finals. On the other hand, you could make a strong argument that Ethical lost to Method NA on the plus 19, and they were able to win on the plus 20. That win may have been due to being a plus 20. Even the fact that like Method NA had problems that they wouldn't have had on a plus 19 probably.
Probably, yeah. I think that's bad though. It's just like it just creates more of a more things that could go wrong and possibly favor the team with less practice. I don't know what to think about having 20s in. I think it's always bad to have different key levels in general.
Yeah. Well, the most hype of MDIs had it went 23, 24, 25.
Well, it was 20, 22, 24. Was that?
No. That was time trials.
Okay.
And then the cup play was 22, 23, 24. And then the grand the global finals, which saw the most viewership of any MDI so far, went 24, 25, 26.
Huh.
I do remember that. I remember someone wiping in a 26 seat for
granted, those maps were pooled into ways where you couldn't you didn't lose just all your practice because you'd only be practicing on one level. But I don't know. I think that formatting was strictly worse, even though it did give everyone viewership. So I don't think you can look at it like that.
Yeah, so there's this little bit of a trade-off here. For instance, so let's talk a little bit about the Twitter poll. There's been a lot of complaints about the Twitter polling for affixes. Right now, we have one that's active for Toldagor, a fortified Toldagor. The options being Quaking Necrotic, Raging Teeming, Sanguine Volcanic, or Bursting Skittish. And the winner of this poll right now is, let's take a look at what's doing it. Yeah, it's Sanguine Volcanic that's very likely to win this in the next 3 hours, unless 1,000 people come by and vote for Raging Teeming real quick. What do you guys think about the outcry against these polls?
Let's let Trail fill this one. I think he's the most outspoken. I don't care personally.
Well, I don't really care anymore, but when I was competing, it is very bad as a competitor to see a poll with 3 sets of really awful affixes, and it's going to be one of those affixes. You just know, because everybody wants to cause the crazy key to happen on stream where everybody wipes 3 times and has 20 deaths on each team, But the competitors just want something that keeps the dungeon in a big pool state where you can go. You pretty much go to the first boss with all the trash, then you go to the second boss with all the trash, then you go to the third boss with one giant cannon pull and Toldagor. But this week's poll is actually kind of tame. The Sanguine Volcanic as the winner is pretty good on it. It's not really too bad in an MDI set. Just Sanguine as the hard affix is really not too bad. But the future weeks could mean that since they're doing these polls, the Blizzard could pull a Bursting Necrotic set on someone. And then obviously the whole community would vote for Bursting Necrotic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree that it seems like the community is pretty much always going to be picking the hardest affixes of the 4 that are offered, and definitely causes a lot of players to see to say things that they don't like it. Stop doing this. Talking about how it's going to get auto banned and stuff. Which I think that this is not going to get auto banned. I don't think that Sanguine Volcanic Toldagor is an auto ban.
The Junkyard one was definitely the Junkyard from NAOCE weekend was definitely an auto ban because it just takes too much time.
The problem with bolstering Junkyard is that you practice it for 6 hours and you don't get very much reliability out of those 6 hours of practice, right? But with Sanguine Toldagor, especially given that you can practice this now and you don't know what the other maps are going to be, I feel like teams should be practicing this.
Yeah, that one's really not bad.
Not planning to ban this. If you just practice this a lot and you force the other team to ban it against you, then that's the competitive advantage. So I don't think this is going to be an auto ban or anything. I think that that's reasonable. I don't know. I also think that these kind of polls, MDI players want they want the dungeon to just be like no affixes, right? They want it to be they want it to be fortify, or I guess they want it to be like tyrannical, teeming, volcanic, or whatever. Tyrannical, teeming, skittish, something like that. And they just want to run through the dungeon and pull all the mobs onto bosses. But for viewership purposes, there's a good argument for having some affixes that are not free, right? That are more complicated, more challenging. And for viewership purposes, like voting on a poll and then going to watch and see what happens in the poll that you voted in, that's good for viewership too. And MDI players want there to be like prizes for the MDI, and they want the MDI to continue, right? And that viewership is a very important part of those two things happening. So there's got to be a balance here.
I think Squishy put it best. It's like the two most hype moments of an MDI is whenever somebody does something that is like unforeseen and is like super spectacular, like kiting the awakened mobs. That's like the first one we've seen in like a while, where it's like a super pog moment. The alternative is like when teams are turbo feeding. That's also really funny. Like there are two moments that are memorable in MDI, and it's those two. And the turbo feed is far more likely than the super pog moment,
especially after the first week. Yeah,
you only remember the extreme goods and the extreme bad.
Yeah,
which is crazy because like as a competitor, you want the dungeons to be like just as fast as possible, as few pulls, and then as a viewer, you want the complete opposite. You want to see some interesting stuff, changes in the route.
I don't know. Well, even in like traditional sports, that's how it is too. Like the most hype moments are like either the things that like secure the win, or two teams just like fiestaing the whole entire time. Like, even in football, they have like all these miraculous moments, like the immaculate reception and shit like that. But then there will be stuff like the ice bowl where fucking teams just neither team scored. Like neither team fucking scored. It's like super stupid shit.
Yeah, or like high scoring games,
or like the butt fumble and shit. Like there's so much from football too, where it's like mega troll plays that just get played on repeat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Although I think the one that flies under the radar is you like to see very close games, like matches in MDI where the teams are 5 seconds apart and both bosses are like 10% at the same time and they have a similar amount of deaths. Those are very exciting. And I think those are more possible if affixes are more regular and they're less punishing. That's the word I'm looking for. And the key level is the same. Because like if you have those factors, the games are generally going to be closer, or you hope to see they're closer at least.
All right. Let us advance through our podcast now to the other topics. But first, we have our tip of the week segment. So my tip of the week is about using your residuum this season. And basically, I want to suggest that if there's only one Azurite piece for you that's an upgrade, saving up to buy specific makes more sense this season than it did last season. The price is the same for buying specific and for buying random, but there's an extra piece in the pool now. So the odds of getting that one good piece have fallen from buying random Azurite quite dramatically from a 6th to a 7th. So
mathematically, last season, if there was only one piece that was an upgrade for you, you would have rather saved up. So the fact that there was one more added, if there's only one piece that's an upgrade, yeah, like Dratnos is saying, you should save up. In addition to that, since the season is super long, there's no like desire where you like need the piece now. Where like previously, like a lot of the reason that you would rather buy random is because you get the piece immediately. So it's not like super time gated. So you'd rather just buy it immediately and just hope. But yeah, I think I agree with that.
It depends on your exact circumstances. Like if you have 2 good pieces and 5 bad ones, it can be a close decision. But it's definitely more favorable to buying specific than it was last season when I thought gambling was like almost always the right move. All right, Trell, what is your tip of the week?
My tip of the week is about the dodge card from last season. If anyone remembers the trajectory analysis red punch card from Mechagon, and it still works off of Necrotic the same way, where once you stack it up to 99 stacks, which happens pretty quickly, you get like 10 to 25% dodge chance, and it's a pretty good option for Necrotic week. I think you could sub out one of your healing trinkets as a tank. Like as a Brewmaster, you play Urchin and the Ny'alotha trinket this season, and you could probably swap out your Urchin for that as a good choice.
Yeah, Urchin pretty nerfed on Necrotic anyways, right?
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Vitality Conduit Major, good for healers this week too. So it's also something else that can be super useful.
All right, let us advance now to Tettles' tip of the week, which of course has been turned into clip of the week.
Why do you say this every single time?
I just want to update people on the situation, why your tip is never a tip, but it's just us watching TV. Let's watch some TV, though. This is the 72nd floor of Torghast. You guys fighting against the Terragru. And it gets turned into a chair. Very cool.
I was like, where did he go? I thought he evaded or like snapped to our tank or something.
Yeah, so
you can see Tettles dying, laughing in the corner.
Yep. For those wondering, the Terragru is that's the like timed mechanic of Torghast. So we'll talk more about how Torghast works later, but you're not supposed to be able to kill that thing. That's something that they're trying to fix. So there's been some new alpha build that is trying to make that so that doesn't happen, but people, of course, are still going to try and kill that thing as much as possible. All right, so before we talk about Torghast, though, we have some Ny'alotha nerfs. So there were two kind of posts with different sets of nerfs to it. We can go sort of boss by boss here and talk about these. So we have Drestagath. Drestagath is 8% health nerf to everything except for Drestagath itself. Tettles, you got any opinions about this one?
Well, I mean, higher end guilds were already just kind of standing around waiting for new tentacles to spawn. So this one is definitely going to make that a more assured where you just kind of stand there.
Kind of need just a gong to make the next wave of attendees spawn or something. Like back in Gate of the Setting Sun. Il'gynoth. 5% health on organs and bloods. Damage requirement to free an allied player from mind control was reduced by 10%. And the corrupted blood maximum radius was reduced by 10%. Now this one has had a couple of interesting side effects. So when this fix was first put out, for the first like 12 hours of the reset, corrupted blood was just not doing any damage because it was not reaching so they coded down how big it got, but it was still set to explode at that maximum radius from before that it was never reaching anymore. They fixed that, but now what's happening is it's pulsing more often because it's growing and shrinking at the same speed, but it's hitting the maximum size at a shorter time now. So the damage taken actually across the raid from the cursed pulses is now higher in our logs than it was before because the radius being increased by 10% is effectively a 10% increase in how often this damage comes out, which is wild. So that's a fun accidental buff here that it seems like they did to Il'gynoth. I'm not sure if that's going to stick around for a long time. Another thing we noticed with this bug, or with this fix, was that our friends aren't getting healed when we're breaking them out of the mind control anymore. Used to be that they'd get like full healed when we broke them out of the mind control, but now they're just
oh my god,
staying at like 30% health. Yeah.
That's an awful fix. That's a terrible fix. I haven't killed that boss. That's the only boss that we have left to farm this week. That sucks.
Yeah, hang on. I'm gonna go take a look into our logs and see if I can find for you.
I'm gonna watch Keto do the boss later.
But yeah, unfortunately, Il'gynoth it seems like the nerfs were sort of accidentally buffs here. So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna
might mess around and accidentally buff the boss.
Yeah. All right. I have some logs here to just confirm this real quick.
Well, it's to entice you to dispel, right? That's why.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really entice you to dispel. It just means you don't have to spread as much with it. Like, this doesn't change the dispel strategy very much at all because the minimum size is still the same.
But the time that it takes is like quicker, so you're taking more damage overall, right?
Yeah.
10% more, right?
Okay. So yeah,
plus you can't dispel as quickly because people are, I don't know, you're gonna have to have people on different like.
So here's
you're gonna have to be more aggressive with your dispelling.
Here's our kill from yesterday. Cursed Pulse damage taken ended up being 107 million damage in a 7-minute and 20-second fight. And here's our kill from last week, 30 seconds longer fight, and we only took 101 million damage from Cursed Pulse. So we took 6 extra million damage over 30 less seconds of fight from Cursed Pulse, thanks to this nerf to the boss fight. So it very much looks like they accidentally buffed the fight here for us, which you do love to see. Okay, we've got some other Ny'alotha changes, though. So besides the Il'gynoth ones, which have been a little buggy, we have Raden. Decaying Wound has been nerfed by a quarter in terms of how much damage it's going to do to the tank. So that's pretty nice. That's the last phase thing.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And then
very good for guilds just getting to that boss. That's a really tough part to get through once you get to it a couple times, first couple times.
Yeah. And then they nerfed the health of Essence of Vita, Essence of Void, and Essence of Nightmare by a large amount as well. Which I think also makes a lot of sense. I don't know, Raden was one of my favorite fights this patch, actually, this tier. I think there's a lot of good mechanics in it.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Was tuned very well, too.
Yeah. Although that decaying wound in the last phase... here, hang on, let me go and take a look at this last phase. Here's our guild's HPS in the last phase of our progression kill with decaying wounds the way that it was back then. It went like taunt immune, so I was just kind of tanking the whole thing back there. So in that last phase, I did 150k HPS as a Blood Death Knight on that boss. This is the requirement for this has been reduced now by 25%, which is very nice because this is a boss that goes taunt immune, depending on what you're trying to do to it, what your strategy looks like, or it can kill tanks pretty easily as well. If you're doing a normal strategy though, this should really help pretty much everybody as well, not just if you're trying to solo tank that last phase. Okay, N'Zoth. Paranoia has been kind of buffed here, kind of nerfed, kind of buffed. It now only drains sanity once per second instead of once per second per player that you're near. What this means is it's a little bit harder to accidentally go in, or to intentionally go insane at the end as well. Because you would go intentionally insane by just having everybody stack. Now that's going to take a little bit of time to happen. But other than that, this is generally a nerf to the fight. N'Zoth's health reduced by 5%. That's the most significant nerf to that fight. Harvest Thoughts is draining 50 less sanity. Doesn't really change anything about that at all. And Evoke Anguish's damage has been reduced by 15%, which is a pretty serious nerf.
Okay, did you want to know something? It's only a nerf to the initial damage, not to the dot.
Yeah, which is wild.
Which is fucking stupid.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I was like, this is still hurting just as much, the ticks.
Yeah, I didn't
realize that.
Nerf to the initial damage. Okay, I guess 15% nerf to the dot. Very big nerf, I will admit. I'm surprised. I think it's a bug.
I think this is supposed to hit the dot as well, but it hasn't. The initial damage is like kind of the least important part as well, because like much of those initial damage hits are covered by barrier or link or something from most strategies, whereas the dot itself is when you're spreading out and is what kills people. So yeah, kind of a wild set of nerfs here. There's some more though, but wait, there's more. They fixed the Cujo bug in Mechagon Workshop, so that's good. Xanesh,
my dog.
5% health nerf and cast time increase to 5.5 seconds instead of 5 on the interrupts. That stopped me from wiping our raid last night, so I'm pretty happy about that. Because I got my interrupts in the last 0.5 seconds. Panic realized I had an interrupt and got it. So thank you for this nerf in particular, Blizzard Entertainment. That did really good things for me. Shadhar, they gave you a little bit more time to pick up the food, and they increased the travel time of the Umbral Eruption, okay? And Hive Mind, 10% health on the darters and 10% damage on the darters, also nerfed. So this is a huge set of nerfs to most bosses in Ny'alotha. Almost all of the ones past those first 3 have gotten some kind of nerf. What do you guys think about this kind of sweeping set of nerfs here?
I'm honestly okay with it. They're opening up Ny'alotha to be cross-realm. Everybody's able to get in there. It's becoming more pug-friendly. It's just becoming a little bit easier to be able to slap together a group that's not the most coordinated Mythic guild and be able to down some of the bosses, like Shadhar, like Hive Mind, like those encounters, to be able to just kind of kill them pretty quickly. Vexiona is probably still pretty easy too.
Yeah, Vexiona, no nerfs to Vexiona.
I don't think I would go ahead and go to Xanesh if I was in like a pug or something, but like...
Yeah, that'd be hard to get past.
Yeah. Xanesh is probably Shadhar and Hive Mind, but like 5 of 12 pugs, pretty realistic now. And then maybe like Raden is something... you can't even really do Raden. Or, like Dressagath, Raden, and Xanesh, when those are the bosses that are active in each wing at that point. Probably when to call it quits in your pug. Unless you guys are really owning. And then, yeah, the N'Zoth nerf should be good for guilds working on that as well. They keep kind of trying to touch this Thought Harvester sanity thing, but this is not going to fix the immunities. Like, this is not going to make it so that you don't need immunities to do this. The sanity is not the problem.
The only way that they fix the Thought Harvesters is if you get 2 per set instead of 3. Or like 2 per like round. I don't even know what to describe it. Phase, I guess.
I mean, you just you gotta do some damage nerfs, like nerf the dot of Evoke Anguish as well. Maybe nerf some of the overlaps with the Harvest Thoughts, and then make it so you can't immune it. Just make it not immunable. I feel like that would be the solution to the Thought Harvester immunity stacking. we got Zyronic in the chat throwing some shade at Warlocks. Did you guys know that my Warlock got a Expedient piece from my box this week? Pretty nice. Pretty nice. Dratnos Summon Rising.
I remember when Zyronic was a big Warlock Mythic Plus streamer.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever he played with Hadrian and Waffle Sauce. Yeah, and Luffy. I do remember that whenever he also did with Fired Up, but now he's just a hater. I don't understand how far he's fallen. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's it's sad to see, really. It's kind of the watching these Warlock Mythic Pluses, it's just like watching them go through the 5 stages of grief, right? They're all he's kind of just this phase right now, he's lashing out.
Some of them are still in denial, like Shelly, still playing World.
It's like Moonkin Mythic Plusers too.
Moonkin Mythic Pluses, yeah, you guys are just... Actually, you kind of went through it a little bit in Season 2 as well.
We're all just depressed and do no damage, and everybody's re-rolled off of it.
Season 3 Moonkin was good. That was just last season.
It was okay.
It was pretty good. Yeah, I'm a fan of these nerfs, though, the Ny'alotha nerfs. I think that's a good set of changes to the raid. Just nerfing it over time, it makes a lot of sense.
I agree. I think now is a good time. I think since it's being open across realm, I think it's a decent time. It's like, all right, everybody. Sure. It's not that everybody can get a cutting edge kill, but like everybody should be able to have fun.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Torghast. So since our last podcast, Torghast opened up. Tettles and I have got alpha access, and Trell does not. We're sorry, Trell.
Yeah. Feels bad, man.
we don't have that kind of clout, bro.
Yeah, we don't have enough clout to currently bring Trell along to the alpha, but if everybody keeps watching our show and sharing it with all your friends, we might get big enough where we can get the whole podcast in next time. For next
channel me your clout. I want to play alpha.
Yeah, please send us as much clout as you have. We need it badly. Poor Trell over here. One drop of clout is all we need. So DH and all the Clothies were the classes you could play on Torghast so far. And it's been really fun. It's this roguelike dungeon crawler WoW experience. Tettles, you and I have done quite a few different runs of them. I think between us, we've played all the different classes and many of the different specs. And you kind of, right now it's got this dynamic where you start off pretty weak in each of your runs, and then you get some power-ups, and then you get really overpowered and just steamroll over the rest of the run. I feel like that should be maybe tuned a little bit. They should maybe make the later floors, I don't know, scale up faster depending on what level you're at, to make it so that they keep up with how overpowered you're getting. But it's hard because, like, on some runs you get like 500% more powerful by the 5th floor, and on some runs you get 10,000% more powerful or whatever, and it's
well, it's like you and I were doing whenever we were messing around. It's like, oh, got that buff, zone out.
Yeah, we did that one time. We were like, hey, these aren't fun, get me out of here. We start again from just like, because you start with a buff, you start with 1 anno power. It's very fun though. It's a very fun system. Tettles, how have you been liking it just kind of overall?
I think it's interesting. Okay, so for me personally, I think it will get boring fairly quickly because it won't be my preferred form of content. I think for other people, it will be pretty cool. I do have major concerns for people who play stuff like healers as like their main spec. So like tanks and DPS, it's very similar to Horrific Visions in that regard, where it's like for tanks and DPS, it's not exactly the most difficult thing. As long as you have like a really good understanding of your class, you're able to kind of get through every single level, just kind of slog through the first couple levels and be able to get through it. If you're playing a healer, I don't know how the hell you actually do it like solo. I think that it should be accessible to everybody solo, personally. Maybe that's a bad philosophy for somebody who's playing a healer, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually done a healer run. You can play like Holy Priest and Disc Priest in there. I assume Disc is pretty good at it. Like you can heal yourself.
I think
a lot.
maybe they'll do the same balancing changes they did to Visions, where they make everything have significantly less health for healers, and then like tanks have a little.
Healers have so few mechanics that work in like a Holy Priest, right? Like you have so few buttons that do something in a Torghast situation, right, by default. So I think that's like, even if you just nerf their health and damage by a lot, all the enemies in there, I don't know how you make that really fun. But on the other hand, there's the enema powers. The enema powers are like really interesting. So you find these things in Torghast that like make your spec do all kinds of weird stuff. So like my Warlock was summoning demons instantly. I had the Corruption Slow Ring from Legion. Unending Resolve was permanent on me. I was doing all kinds of wild stuff, and my Shadow Priest was like building up damage onto my next auto attack. So I would just walk up with like 100 stacks of this thing and auto attack and one shot things with my priest, awesome. Just bop them. There's all kinds of cool, anima powers that do different things for different specs in cool ways. I think that they need to make sure that they design some that are like really transformative for solo healers, to make sure that
Something that I immediately noticed that was also going to be a problem is the fact that there's no timer. So like if you really wanted to, you could wait out like you could like metamorphosis every single pack. That would be kind of weird. I don't know what the circumstances which you would do that would be, but like you could technically do that if you really wanted to, or just like any other cooldown. And the fact that if you wanted to run up 72 floors, it took 4 hours.
Yeah, so the timing, like we don't know how Torghast is actually going to work on live, like what floors you're going to do in a run for a normal thing. But like you were getting legendary components every 6 floors, right? So that seems like kind of the unit of amount of floors maybe that you'll be doing runs of, or 12 or something. I'm not sure, but I think that. Yeah, I think that the timing thing is a little bit of an interesting thing. Like, I think that they maybe need to give you like an incentive to keep pulling, to chain pull, that isn't a timer. So instead of like penalizing you for not pulling in a certain amount of time, like giving you a timer that kicks you out or whatever, they should give you like the way that action games have a combo that you keep up by killing stuff. Give you something like a 30-second buff that you keep up by killing things. And it stacks and stuff, and like good. If that falls off, then you're slowed down, and it your incentive is to keep that up more than it is to wait for your meta cooldown.
True. So on Alpha, in addition to that, you can start the Torghast at levels 113 or 25. That will not be the case whenever it goes live too. So imagine if you had to go from floor 1 to floor 72, or like not had to, like you'll never have to. Imagine if there was an incentive to go from floor 1 to floor 72.
I don't know. It's just so early to know like what they're gonna pick for the actual experience. I don't think that they're going to make like a 5-hour experience something that you need to do for the game. Like there's just I don't think that's something that they're looking at.
That would be awful. I would hate that so much.
I'm already worn out just doing 3 visions a week that take like 15-20 minutes each.
Pretty sure that the like 6 floor limit or amount is what, or like 12 for the 12 is what normal and easy are right now. It's just heroic is like uncapped. Like I think that they should make sure that the rewards come from like a 6 or 12 run, and then you can do a infinite run for funsies or whatever if you're a degenerate, but don't make it so that there's any meaningful stuff gated behind that. All right, the difficulty scaling was a little bit off. Hopefully they can get that sorted out where it does.
I agree with that. Yep.
Right now, it's basically like the first couple floors of a heroic run are really, really, really hard, and then it gets really, really, really easy once you start getting overpowered. And hopefully they can kind of balance that out in some way. Maybe some system that like even looks at how broken your character is and adjusts the next floor accordingly would be worth doing.
Scale like linearly, probably.
Right, and your character just
damage they're doing to you
pops off after a couple of floors. So yeah. It's gonna be really interesting to see. I got high hopes for this thing. The thing is like worst case, unless they have something like island level incentives that force us to be in there for like 10 hours a day in the first week of a patch, it's hard to imagine this really having being negative, right? At worst, it's probably just gonna be like something that you do a little bit of and it's kind of fun, and then you don't really go back
eventually. Yeah, it's like what Horrific Visions turned into. Like right. Horrific Visions were like lit at the very beginning and they kind of got boring, but they were still lit at one point.
So at worst, I think this will be like better than Horrific Visions. At best, I think it could be like a new thing that players spend most of their time in, potentially. So that's exciting. I think they're onto something fun so far. But yeah, that's Torghast. Let's move on to our question and answer segment. So our first question comes from Tabu34 in chat, who asks, what do you think a cup would look like, an MDI Cup, with legitimate high keys? I don't know if it would be awful or not. Charles, do you have an opinion on what a high key MDI would look like?
I know exactly what it would look like. So you know how the casters have to like kind of repeat themselves over and over with explaining certain mechanics on bosses? Well, that would just happen like 4 times as much.
Dude, if you hit me with a 4-minute boss to cast, I'm going to lose my shit. Like, that would be so miserable to do. Like, so watching a team like do a high key and hearing their comms, like whenever you're watching somebody stream and you hear their comms, it's cool. If you have casters casting over a team doing a high key, I think that would just be miserable, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. Imagine watching a 42-minute King's Rest, like a 25 King's Rest.
And here comes the 8th spit gold of the fight. Let's see who that's going to go on. It goes on the rogue. He's going to walk back and drop it off at the edge of the room. And they're going to go and keep attacking the golden serpent.
Oh my goodness. And the rogue procced a twisted appendage. And he's using blood of the enemy to be able to do enhanced damage via that twisted appendage. Look at him go up 3k DPS on the damage meter currently.
Yeah, so that's a problem with high keys in the MDI. Another problem with high keys in the MDI is like, you make the keystone level too high, and teams are like the odds that it's a close match kind of go down because the odds that just somebody really scuffs it go up dramatically, right? Like, you can even just look like East Cup King's Rest last season, right, where teams were depleting there. It's like when the keystone gets to a level where it's depleting, or it's close to the timer, I think it stops being. I don't know. I think that there's some exciting space in esports for high key pushing, but I don't think that it is 1v1 teams playing on the same map against each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I were talking about this in DMs a couple weeks
back. Yeah, Tettles and I have some ideas for how to make high key pushing an esport, but it's not an MDI style format. It's a different format.
It's definitely very different. Yeah, it's just, it would be too boring for both viewers. Like, the competitors would probably find it very similar, but like, it's hard to like pit teams against one another while they're doing high keys, because it's not really reasonable. I think it's the best way of putting it.
Yeah,
dude, like, okay, think about the times that you walk into the King's Rest and you like fucking like lose your run in the first 35 seconds, and somebody jokingly goes, drop it in 2 chests, and you all immediately zone out of the instance. Like, that's what happens so regularly. So watching that for something that's supposed to be like an esport competition sounds miserable.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel about it too. All right, next question comes from Morsha in Discord. What's the counterplay to somewhat bolstered Atal Juggernauts doing their charge thing? I got one shot on a 17 with 2 or 3 bolster stacks towards the end of that pack. Is it just keeping them stunned? I wasn't sure if it was on a regular timer since Bigwigs doesn't have anything for it. Tettles, how do we play around Juggernauts?
So you can do a couple of different things. You can dodge them. Their charge does have projectile speed, so you are able, like, if you're standing far enough away, you can just like even walk out of it. You don't necessarily need a movement speed. You can use like blinks or disengages or whatever to be able to dodge out of the way of it. If everybody's in melee, they will only pick that player that's at range to charge. I think generally, though, the most agreed upon strategy is snap spots, utilizing them. So the Priestess Alunza one, Priestess Alunza has 2 different snap spots in her room that you can use. I assume that Dratnos is probably going to show us videos shortly.
Oh, did you? Oh, wait, are these videos that you put in here? All right.
Yeah, I have videos here. Okay. So basically, there are 2 snap spots that in Priestess Alunza's room where if that person is the only person that is at range, then they will cancel their charge, keeping them in melee. Of course, the spot like on the stairs at the very beginning of the instance is fairly well known, but those 2 spots are not exactly the most well known.
Yeah, so you can tell you're in the right spot because you'll see the Juggernaut actually cast the Merciless Assault. He'll like finish the cast and then just not move for a sec, and that means he tried but he couldn't.
It's right here where Tettles is kind of the common space for fighting this pack, and back here the Juggernauts won't have a path to charge at you, but they'll try. And you just have to make sure you're fighting the pack somewhere in range where, like, you fight him at the top of the stairs so that Tettles is in range here. That's absolutely a common move. The other option is the brazier, you were talking about in the front of the room, but this isn't one that usually gets used for that middle pack because it's kind of far away from them. Yeah, good videos, Tettles. I was wondering what those ones were in there. I should have looked.
I saw your face whenever I said that, and I realized that you did not have them open. I was like, oh no.
That's all right. We got him eventually. Yeah. So that's
You should know that all 4 of the other players that aren't in a snap spot should be right in melee range of the Juggernaut as well. Yep. They have to target someone at range.
Totems, Magus of the Dead, pets, all of those things can bait the Juggernauts as well. So if you have a Magus of the Dead that's like 8 yards away from your group casting, they'll charge that Magus, and anybody who's too close to it's going to get killed as well. So you got to be careful.
If you're playing a hunter, make sure that you put your hunter pets on like stay here mode, to where like, because you need them to stay on the ground to be able to, for you to be able to deal damage. So make sure you position them before you hop in the spot as well.
Yeah, like if you're using snap spots on Taltazar, there's a lot of hunter micro involved if you're that BM hunter. Mm-hmm. All right, next question comes from Honey on Discord. I'd love to hear a discussion on how the upper bracket in MDI can be reduced, or even if you think it's a problem. It feels like having to play in the lower bracket to reach the grand finals puts the lower bracket team, who's already the underdog, at an even bigger disadvantage with the extra time the upper bracket finalist has to practice the plus 20 maps. So first off, the plus 20s are gone now, but even before then, the upper bracket team hasn't lost yet in a double elimination tournament, right? So it's actually kind of not standard, or not always done this way. Often what tournaments will do is they'll make it so that the upper bracket team has to actually lose 2 series in order to lose the tournament, and the lower bracket team only has to lose 1 series to lose the tournament in the grand finals. The MDI doesn't work that way, so that's already kind of a bigger advantage for the lower bracket team into the grand finals than, you know, a normal competition. You're absolutely right, though, that the upper bracket does get some advantages, right? Making it, like, having more time to practice, not having to play back-to-back matches into the grand finals, and having time to practice those maps, even without the plus 20s, like, yes, that is a set of advantages. But I think it's offset by the fact that, like, the lower bracket team has already lost once in the tournament, and the upper bracket team hasn't, right? There's a reward for that.
Yeah, I've always just thought of it as, like, that's the reward you get for winning and not ever losing, is that you get that break, and you don't have to be tired out by playing an extra match in between your upper finals and the grand finals.
So, something that is interesting to me, though, is, like, there's so few upsets in MDI, I feel like, a lot of the time, that it's kind of... It does become problematic in that regard. So maybe there could be something done to increase upsets. That's not, like, I don't want to say arbitrary, but it's like it shouldn't be forced upsets, but there should be a way that teams who have less time to practice than 16 hours a day are able to actually compete.
Yeah, that's something that you could definitely, you know, like, if your goal is to make it so that if you're trying to design a tournament structure where the best team wins less often, you could come up with you would try and reduce the upper bracket advantage even further, right? Like, you would.
I think to me it's just like, I think it's hard on the competitors to warrant practicing 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially since WoW is not exactly like the most stable of esports. It's not like a tier 1 esport. So the teams either have to, like, stream, or they have to, like, forego doing other things with their other jobs, and generally just won't have enough practice time, where there's some teams that are able to commit all of their time and, like, all of their energy to it. So I think that if there was, so, like, obviously, like, the obvious solution is obviously make a league and, like, pay the players more and, like, pay them salaries and stuff like that. It's not really reasonable for a while.
Yeah, that like any obvious solution can't include increasing the budget of the whole thing by a huge amount, right? Like, that's not a solution, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, basically, it should try to be as even as possible, given the restraints. But, like, the best team ultimately should win. But I think we are currently seeing the best team win, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some incentive to, like, make that a smaller gap for teams wanting to go from, like, nothing to competitive with method. On the other hand, I don't know, like, if a team is practicing a lot and, you know, really, really good,
yeah,
I don't think we want to bend over backwards to, like, try and screw those teams, right? Like,
I agree with that. It definitely is like a rough predicament, because you don't want to, like, be screwing other teams over, but you do want to, like, even the playing field, because some teams just don't have 1,000 hours to practice.
Yeah, it's tough. There's not an easy solution to it.
I mean,
it's a weird esport. Like, it's hard to make live key pushing into an esport. It's simple as that.
All right. I think that about does it here for our questions and answers. Anything else that we missed, Tettles? Anything you guys want to talk about this week?
Ooh, actually, one more thing that I want to one more point that I wanted to make on that last topic is that viewers always love like an underdog story too, and it's really hard to get underdog stories in WoW esports. So I wonder, like maybe that would be good for viewership. Maybe that, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know how you facilitate that more with the rules of the MDI, because the MDI is such a, like, the better team wins such a high percentage of the time if they're like even if there's a notable gap in skill between two teams, the better team is winning such a high percentage of those matches. There's really it's kind of like chess, right? Where like the better chess player just wins so often against each other, whereas like the better poker player wins against the worst poker player maybe 60 or 70% of the time instead of 100% of the time.
52% of the time.
Yeah, 52%, something like that. Those are the ones that make it a little bit more, because you know the underdog wins more often. So yeah, tough problem to solve. I don't think that anybody has a good suggestion to solve it yet that doesn't cause more problems than good.
Maybe it shouldn't be a problem to solve.
Yeah, so it might just be something where it's like, all right, this is, you know,
it's a speed run.
It's like how it be.
Speed runs. Yeah, it may just be how it is.
All right, that does it for our show this weekend. This week, I guess, this middle of the week. We'll be back. So Tettles and I casting the MDI this weekend, and then we'll be back again on this channel in 7 days' time. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye.
Bye.